Hey, what's going on, everybody? How's it going? Thank you, everybody, for coming. This is awesome to see so many people here. Really cool. Thank you for making your way out on a Wednesday. Can everybody hear me all right? Okay, cool. So, my name is Enrique Martinez. I'm here with Novation. We're going to be talking about, of course, the Launchpad Pro, and then at the end of this, I'm also going to be doing a little bit more on the Summit as well, in case some of you aren't familiar. Very similar to Peak. It's just kind of the new flagship synth, basically two peaks together with a lot of added features and stuff like that that we've been wanting to add from the original. But first and foremost, Launchpad Pro. Oh, also, I'm going to talk about this a bit. Then we're going to do some questions and ask some questions. We got some T-shirts, so correlate those two as well. And then we'll move on to Summit as well. So, Launchpad Pro Mark III is our newest addition to the Launchpad line, and I'm really excited that we've finally added a fully standalone Launchpad. Like the Launchpad Pro Mark II had MIDI out, awesome. Polyphonic aftertouch, awesome. Channel pressure, velocity sensitive pads. You can use that to control anything you wanted, like your typical grid controller, for a super affordable price, especially compared to other grid controllers. But we've now basically taken all those same things, added 4 tracks, and put in a built-in sequencer that comes from basically all our sequencer lines, like the SL Mark III, Circuit Monostation. We've taken all the best little bits of that, applied them to here, and left room to add more as well. So in typical Novation fashion, there's always, we're listening, we're reading, we're trying to find out what our users want the most out of their stuff. So we've, tried to find ways to wiggle a lot of that stuff in. So 4-track sequencer. Each track is a 32-step sequence. If I press play, you can see, let's see, can you see? Yeah, you can see, cool. So there's 2-bar sequence. Each track has 8 patterns. You got track 1, track 2, track 3, track 4. These, of course, can be chained. We even have pattern sets, which means when I press this white button, play those 4, play this 1, play these 6, and then play those 8. So it's almost like a pseudo song mode. What's great here is you can also chain your pattern sets, so then you can really just do like fully long, forever evolving pads and sounds. So I'm just going to go and stick with just a simple pattern here. And if I go to track 1, I'm using Summit as our sound source right now. This is, again, fully standalone. I know that there's a computer here, but I just wanted to touch base on some of the customizing capabilities of the custom modes on the Launchpad, as well as the Ableton integration, but we'll get to that in a second. So all the sounds are coming from Summit. So this is just one sound here, and on Summit it's bitembral, so there's 2 voices, or 2 patches running. So I got track 1 on this, and then I have track 2 is coming from here as well. So what's great is I can say, cool, on the first step, in case you're not familiar with our step sequencers, press play. The white square represents the playhead in a 32-step sequence, in case, 2 bars. Got a couple patterns chained already. So I'll say here, dun, 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 dun. Sweet. So on the first step, I can enter in what notes I want that step to play. So let's say, I can press and hold that, say play for a bar. So I'm going to turn this down a bit so I don't blow your ears out. Boom. And then I'll go to pattern settings, and in here, I can just say play 16 steps instead of the full 32 steps, or you can say play 12 steps or whatever. And this is all independent per pattern, per track. So all the other tracks are still at 32. Even more, I can say play this at half tempo. But what's cool is in our pattern settings, we also have randomization of the play mode. So we have randomize, ping pong, reverse, forward. You have all the clock divisions. And then if I continue down the right-hand side, it's kind of our pattern editing section. We have velocity. I can even go and select what notes play at what velocity so that you can kind of have a bit more dynamic chords. Probability, huge addition. I don't think any of our sequencers have probability to this point. So this is the first time we've actually added probability to one of our sequencers. After probability, basically you're saying, what's the chance of that step happening? 12.5% all the way up to 100% chance. Mutation, this is my favorite thing. This kind of sort of comes from the mono station. On the mono station, you would have a sequence with some notes, and you would say mutate this pattern, and it would just randomize the pattern. Here, it's on a per step basis, and by how much. So if I do 50% chance of mutation, the probability of it playing the note will always be there. It's still set to 100%. But what's the chance of it playing a different note? But furthermore, we have a chord with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 notes in it. So that probability gets applied to each of those notes individually. It's not going to change the entire chord. It could just change like the quality of the chord. And since it's at about 50%, it'll play a third or a fifth, maybe a seventh, or you can go all the way to full percent, which will be like an octave, sometimes 2 octaves, maybe go down. So we'll leave it at 50% and just press play. New chord. Let's see if it'll land us another pretty one. Sweet. What's great here, I can then go to our next track. I'll just make it 8 steps, and I'll add this here. Same thing, I'll add probability. Sweet, 50% chance, duplicate, do. Oh, that's probability, I meant to do mutation. We'll say mutate, what's the chance, 50%, and I can just duplicate that across. You even have your track mutes, so if I press our track selection button, the chords and just play the little bass line, or do the opposite and then bring it all back in. But it's great, like that's just a self-generative, just play forever type of thing. And then you can even do some weirder stuff, like let's say we go back to our steps. On this last note, if I hold it down, you can see basically these are our 4 octaves in scale. I'll put it a little higher. But it's still going to have, let's add some mutation to that as well. So from this point, it's going to mutate a little different. Or go to pattern settings. I'll say start here. Let's see. And then end here. Or do something even weirder. So that's just like 2 tracks of the 4 tracks that you get. And again, all the pattern settings and all that stuff gets saved per track, and they're all independent from one another. So we got basically this track running at 16 steps, but is at, an 1/8 of the tempo rather than a 16th. Track 2's starts on step 2, ends on step 5, which is 4 steps, but kind of flipped a little bit. 16, we can do randomization if we wanted to create even more spontaneity. And with all this stuff applies as well. So let's say start here, end there. All this stuff is saved within that pattern. So then I can duplicate patterns to here, and we'll go and launch basically pattern 4, track 2, go back to that, and we'll say pattern settings play at 30 seconds. Oh, and forward. And then if you go and tie those 2 together, It's just a fun way to kind of keep things moving, keep things going. The sequencer can stay running this entire time. You don't need to stop and apply some settings or go into some weird menu. All your pattern settings are right there. We even have micro steps, which kind of better applies to drums. Actually, speaking of drums, so between each step of the 32-step sequencer, there's 6 micro steps, and those, similar to circuit where you can play unquantized, this is where you can kind of take those notes off of the grid and create a more unquantized feel. And it might be a little harder to hear on here. Let's see if I can just make a quick pattern with it. So I'll say pattern settings, we'll do 8 steps, up an octave, bum, bum, cool, micro steps. So there, I've added 3 micro steps, so it's gonna have a bit of a ratchet, but I need to set this up a little better. And again, that mutation is really cool because on that step, there's mutation applied. So each of those ratchets has a chance of mutating. It's not gonna just apply mutation and apply it the exact same to all 3 ratchets or micro steps. Each individual micro step will have a different chance of playing something else. And you can really hear it if you slow this way down. So it's just, yeah, it's just super fun. Like, just do that. And yeah, I did I keep joking. I guess I don't know if I should say this, but at NAMM, I did a live ambient set. And I just did this. I just let that run. And I just played the filter for like 20 minutes. And it was like the best set I've ever done. And I was like, cool, thank you, see you later. And I was just like, cool, the Launchpad just made these patterns for me. And it was awesome. I guess a weird kind of cool thing about this though is when it's connected with Ableton, which we have here, there's a print to clip option. Can you see that up there? Yeah, you can't. So if I select this clip, let me go and zoom in a little bit so you can actually see what I'm doing. I thought that this was pretty clever. Where is it at? Zoom display. Awesome. So I've selected this clip here. Actually, I'll select this one. This button down here is called print to clip. If I push that, it's now made a clip with all that note information, even the mutation in there, and it's just thrown it into Ableton for me. And it's a weird way, I'm not exactly sure how it works, to be able to grab the mutation as well as the probability stuff. But what I think it's doing is basically, it's almost like Ableton's capture MIDI, where it's always running, and then with that, depending on how long your pattern is, it'll grab the previous 1-bar pattern, 4-step pattern, 2-bar pattern, whatever it is, when you press that and create a clip for you. So if we were to play this again, and then we go on and go here, grab a new clip, the notes have now changed. So it keeps kind of grabbing new information, and it's just an easy way to be able to be like, oh, that was cool, but I'm gonna throw that into Ableton and save that for later. I no longer have to set up MIDI channels, track 1, track 2, track 3, track 4, track everything in. It's just literally push one button, it shoots it over. And in all of this, you have the 4 tracks, the patterns, the pattern sets, all this stuff gets saved within 64 projects. So these are your projects here, easy enough, hit save, what color you want it to be, red, and I'll save it down here. So now that's there, that's gonna save all your pattern information, the pattern playback settings, the mutation, the probability, all that stuff. And similar to circuit and our other sequencers, utilizing the duplicate as well as the clear button is really, really fun and really easy to just kind of keep things moving. But as far as the sequencer side of things, that's really it. Oh, actually, that's not it at all. This here, track 1, this setup now is in a drum pad mode. If I hit shift and sequencer, this is kind of our sequencer settings. It might be a little difficult to see here, but essentially these are the notes of a keyboard. You got all your white notes and then your black notes up top. So this is C, minor, major, a bunch of others as well. And you basically have 16 different scales you can choose from, and they get thrown into there. But how to access these is with these buttons here. So this is changing this top section. The first one is drum pad mode. It's just drums. Of course, if this was drums, you would hear drums. If I go here, it's going to be notes in that selected scale. If we go to this one here, this is going to be chromatic. Right? So this allows you to kind of have your tracks set up to do different things. And again, in the drum pad mode, it's really fun because that's where you can really utilize all the ratchets, the probability, and all that stuff. And these pads do have velocity sensitivity as well as polyphonic aftertouch, which is great for a lot of synths. And again, when it comes to comparing this to other grid controllers out there, they can get really, really expensive. So being able to have in scale up to 8 octaves that you could play with one hand with velocity sensitivity and pressure sensitivity for this price is pretty hard to beat, especially with a 4-track standalone sequencer. And if you wanted to select your MIDI channels, that's all across the bottom, 1 through 16 for track 1, track 2, track 3, track 4. So pretty simple, pretty easy. And then, yeah, so that's the sequencer side of things. It's very straightforward. You don't need a screen to operate it. It's super just, yeah, you get what you see, which is the best part about this, and it just allows you to keep things moving quickly and easily. And when it comes to Ableton integration, we got things like the print-to-clip. If I hit session mode, it'll jump over to our Ableton session here. And I hope this still sounds good. Let's see. So when it comes to Ableton's integration, what's great here is we have our track selections now across the bottom of the Launchpad. This quickly allows you to jump between things, and if things weren't armed, it'll do the whole auto arm and all that stuff. But what's great is if I launch this clip, we now have device control. And these faders, they're velocity sensitive. So if I hit them really hard, it'll move fast. If I barely tap it, it'll do a nice gradual fade. So when it comes back to like the first edition of the Launchpads, it was basically 8 values from 0 to 128. And it was just the most like steppy thing possible. So this actually allows you to gradually get between all of those values and back. And what's cool is on Launchpad Pro Mark II, you only had control over 8 of the most commonly used parameters, but I can actually page down using these here and access every parameter that a device has to offer. And I can even use this to jump between devices and access other devices. Let's go to our delay and then have all our delay parameters right here on the right-hand side. So the device control on here is great. You also have your sends, and depending on how many sends you have, they will all show up here, up to 8. Panning left to right, as you would expect. Volume control, all velocity sensitive. You got your solos for your tracks, mutes for your tracks. And let's unsolo that. And record arming, in case you wanted to record arm specific things. You can record arm multiple things. But a great thing here is on the left-hand side, you got more control. We've basically tried to max out the real estate that you can utilize on the Launchpad Pro. So you got quantize. You can even turn on and off record quantizing. One of my favorite things here is the fixed length. So if I hold down fixed length, I can choose after what amount of time is Ableton gonna stop recording and just start looping the bar. So if I set it here, that's 1 bar, 2, 3, 4 bars, up to 8 bars. And that's just great because I can just hit record, go do my thing, and then it'll automatically start looping after the selected amount of time. Duplicate, you can duplicate your clips. You can even double the length of clips. You can clear stuff out all here. It's just a nice, I find it really nice in, it's an easy way to make Ableton feel a bit more tactile, which allows you to build up some more muscle memory when it comes to your workflow, because it's really hard to, especially with like an iPad or the little touchpad here, to build up that muscle memory that helps you within your workflow, because it takes you one less thing to really think about and take you out of the creative zone. You're just kind of there. Oh, that's cool. Duplicate that scene, double this, record arm that, add some more stuff into there, jump over into the sequencer stuff, sequence your drum rack, and and then shoot that as a new MIDI clip over. It's just really simple, and yeah, I mean, it's the ultimate travel thing. This thing is beyond thin. I almost want to say it's like half as thick as the old Launchpad Pro Mark II, and it's bus powered, which is great. And it has 2 MIDI outs, which is also great, and a MIDI in case you wanted to use an external keyboard to shoot MIDI notes into this. Note mode, it's dynamic as well, so if we go and select another track that has drums on it, it'll jump over to a drum rack, showing us what track, where we have samples and stuff. So if this was fully filled up with samples, you can just kind of go and like jump between all the samples you have here. So that's an easy way to kind of take control of your drum rack stuff. And again, if you select another track that has notes, you're now playing notes. You also have this dynamic weird chord mode that's really cool. Let me see if I can just find another thing. Which one? You know what? I'll just use this. Yeah, cool. So the chord mode, I did some weird tuning earlier. Essentially what the chord mode is doing, you got like your root note, and it kind of goes up. It flips the chord mode kind of on its side, but the reason we did this is so you can kind of visually see a better case of what you're doing. And this all plays in with what scale you're actually utilizing, but what's cool is these white squares over here on the side act as a chord bank. So you like this, you can put that there. I like that, I'll put that there. But you can also put that there. So you can go and build your own chord modes and utilize those later. There's even a funky little sustain pedal here. So if this was full sustain, no attack or release. And then of course if you wanted to lock that, you just turn that on so you can't actually go and edit these. And this again will be saved with the Launchpad's like internal RAM. So the chord modes are great if you want to shoot chords into Ableton and kind of help explore some different things. And last but not least, after the Ableton integration, we have custom modes, and there are none loaded. Sweet, what a way to show this off. So if we go over to this section here, taking a look here, it's hopefully you guys can see it. I know it's probably hard in the back. Basically, this is components. It's kind of where we have everything Novation, whether it's like the base station, the Launchpad, Summit, Peak. It's a place where you can kind of go. It's our little central hub. Update your firmware, get some new sound packs from artists. It's all free. You can sign in. And yeah, it's great because it holds everything in the cloud. I was able to utilize this. I had to go to the Novation pop-up shop in London. Didn't want to take any of my gear, just uploaded my circuit at home, went there, borrowed a circuit, downloaded it onto theirs, and sweet, I was ready for the show. So in here, if I hit create a custom mode, it kind of gives us this digital version of what the Launchpad Pro is. But what's cool is I can say, all right, what do I want to add? We got these widgets over here. I can say, cool, let's put some vertical faders here. I'll put a little drum grid over here. I want this to be MIDI channel 2. CC8 instead of 7. Let's color that red. Our drum grids, what octave is it going to stay in? What color is that going to be? Let's do purple. And what I'm doing here basically is setting up this to be a true MIDI controller. It's going to send out MIDI CCs on different MIDI channels. And whenever I'm ready, just send to Launchpad Pro custom mode 1, and boom, it popped up right there. So now we got our faders here, our little drum grid here, and what's great about this is all this can be sent out of the 2 MIDI outputs as well as the USB MIDI. So in that, like my one that I had for a while, actually, do I have it here? Oh, I didn't log in. Yeah, I don't have it here on my other account. I have one set up for my Octatrack, so I have all 8 levels of all my Octatrack levels just right here, so I can easily and quickly see what's where, what level's where. And it's cool because I can just go like this, and fade out of the live input and fade into the sampled version and kind of just use this as a mixer. And while that's going, I can go back to my sequencer and do a bunch of other stuff running on my other synths. So even just this alone as a MIDI controller to do whatever you wanted it to do is great, because there's also things like program change. You can do like in-scale keyboards. There's just CC buttons. The CC buttons are actually pretty cool because, I mean, this is super nerdy stuff, but on value, when you press it, what value does it hit? When it's off, what value does it fall to? How it works, is it momentary, on and off? Is it toggle or gated? What CC number? And again, all these can be on up to 16 different MIDI channels at once. They don't have to be on the same MIDI channel, which is great because that's perfect for the Octatrack or the Digitact or any of the Electron stuff where each track is on a different MIDI channel. So you can actually use this for just that. Like, this is a great companion to any of those things. But that's the custom modes here. You also got control over your projects, so you can get your pack from the Launchpad Pro. We don't have any projects on here really. Yeah, there's none, just except the one that I saved. Firmware, custom modes, and yeah, I mean, custom modes it can be tedious, I guess, because you still have to go and sign it up. There's really no other way to do that without having it be as customizable as possible. But yeah, any questions on the Launchpad Pro? No? Yeah. Oh, actually, you know what? I'm not too sure. I think it might be only an Ableton thing right now, but yeah, I'm not too sure. I'm sure we'll leave a comment on the live stream about that for sure. And you had a question as well?
The Mark II had like space in the firmware for users to write their own custom firmware. Is there such a program in Mark III?
Custom program and basically like open source as much as the Launchpad Pro Mark II was. I'm not sure on the Launchpad Pro Mark III. I think we've heard it quite a bit from a few of our users recently, and I don't see it as being out of the question, but I can't say for sure if they're working on that. Right, exactly. Yeah, like again with like most of our stuff, even like the Launch Key Mini, when you look at the Launch Key Mini, the last three keys has a triangle, a square, and a circle, specifically just so we can add stuff later. And we were like, yeah, just hit the triangle. We didn't know what it was for when we put it on there, but now we do, you know. So I'm sure there'll be room for more improvement as well. Yeah.
Was going to a 32-step sequencer more of kind of the user experience or UX design choice, or is that kind of like a hardware decision?
Utilizing the 32-step sequencer instead of the typical 16-step, I think it was just because we had the real estate. You know, we had the same amount of 4 octaves, which we found was enough to play, especially when people are getting by with like a 31 slim key MIDI controller or, you know, a 25 key keyboard, which is barely 2 octaves. We found that 4 octaves was enough. And then we're like, okay, well now if we do 16 steps, what's up with that? You know, how do we continue moving this forward? So then we're like, oh, let's just make it 32 steps. Instead of 128 sequences, you get 256-step sequence. And all those patterns as well can still be changed, so you can have a full 16-bar sequence if you wanted. And then, yeah, utilizing all that stuff. So I think it was just more of like, how do we fully maximize the space that we are now playing with, having an 8x8 grid? Yeah.
I know you said there was a button used previously for sustain. Is there something else that you can add or a user interface for pitch bend modulation too?
Yeah, so with those, the CC buttons, I'm pretty sure you can apply those to do exactly that and have it be like an on value is how much, and then the off value is how much as well. Yeah. You had a question? So does it support microtonal scales? That's a great question. Let me actually see if I go into create custom mode. I've always wondered this. I haven't actually tried it. Put the scale on here. So this one doesn't change it yet, but I want to say, well, no, is the question right now, but I don't think that would be hard to add, given the flexibility of this thing. So that's a great suggestion as well. I'll jot that one down. Thanks.
Outside of the custom mode, how do you sequence that with the CCs or just MIDI CCs?
Right. So to record the MIDI CCs from the custom modes,
Outside of you setting the
Oh, outside of the custom mode? No, so the sequencer is just going to be note on and off as well as pitch. Yeah. Yeah, so the custom modes will send CCs to external synthesizers and like open filters and stuff, but that will be separate from the sequencer. So if you had record on the sequencer and then you went to custom mode and like opened the filter and then closed it, it'll just stay open and closed. It won't actually record that into a lane of automation within the sequencer. Yeah.
Can the Launchpad receive external clock, or is it always going to be the...
Yeah. Yeah, so the question was, can the Launchpad receive external clock? And I'm pretty sure I have it set up here. Let's see if I go to our sequencer steps and I just press play in Ableton. Yeah. So that's set up there, and it'll also be set up to receive MIDI from the MIDI input as well. So if I just hit this little setup button down here, you have your LED brightness, velocity sensitivity, like basically none, very hard, or kind of easy to hit, as well as your aftertouch, whether it's channel, poly, and again, the pressure sensitivity that you actually need to apply. MIDI input, whether it's receiving clock, not receiving clock, outputting clock, not outputting clock, receiving note data or not, as well as the pads, and you can even just turn your pads, I believe it's just off or something weird. I forget what the pad section does. But yeah, those are some of the external settings. Mm-hmm.
You mentioned more expensive MIDI controllers a few times. Is there anything you kind of wish made the cut that didn't, or anything you were surprised that made the cut in Launchpad that you're just really happy about?
Yeah, so I'd say something that I was definitely surprised about was Circuit is 2 tracks, 6 notes of polyphony. This one is, and 16 steps. This one's 32 steps, 8 notes of polyphony per track, and it's 4 tracks, which is great. And then on top of that, with all the custom mode capability stuff, was really cool because I was also utilizing the Launch Control XL, and I would have to map that to do my Octatrack stuff. And I was just like, cool, I just need 8 faders. I don't need the 3 rows of knobs plus the 16 buttons on top. I wish there was just a fader section. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. That's exactly what this is. So being able to use this as that, as well as the sequencer, has kind of killed 2 birds with 1 stone, for the lack of a better term. And yeah, I mean, the more and more I use this thing, it's really fun. The mutation's really fun. I didn't think we would be able to add probability, which was cool. So having that, again, is per step. But the one thing that surprised me the most was the mutation and how it works. I thought it was going to be, this whole step will be mutated, whatever's on there, but it's literally per note, not necessarily per step, which is kind of hard to explain. But once you start using it, you're like, oh, this makes perfect sense. Yeah, yeah. This has been a super fun setup. And then I just wish I had like a drum machine or something to play on track 3.
Got some questions from YouTube.
Oh yeah, what's up, YouTube?
How do you sync the tempo with Ableton? And then other question is, can it like merge the MIDI in with the MIDI coming out of the sequencer to the MIDI out?
Huh, that's a good question. So let's answer the easy one first. To sequence it from from Ableton, you just go into your link and MIDI tabs, and out here it'll say Output to Launchpad Pro, MIDI, DAW, or Launch Control. And this one here, as long as the sync is set to on, it'll just start going as soon as you press play in Ableton. And furthermore, if you have like a drum machine that's sending MIDI out and it's plugged into the MIDI in, by default, it's already set to receive clock. And if there's nothing plugged in there, it'll just be its internal clock. So it's kind of a weird smart switching way of doing things, but you can always turn that off too. As far as the MIDI merging, I'm not too sure. Can I test that right now? MIDI in, out. Yeah, I think it totally will, because the sequencer can overdub, which is great. And that's another benefit of this over a lot of other hardware sequencers, is this exact thing. Here, let me show you something. This is one thing that's bugged me with a lot of other sequencers. So if I go into track 1 and I say in scale, we'll say, we don't need that much effects, do we? Not so much resonance, and we'll turn it up an octave. So if I say on the first step, 1 bar, settings, 8, and then I'll do divide it in half. So we have. So what's really cool is I can still go up a couple octaves and actually record on top of this. And as long as there's polyphony available, I can just keep adding notes on top of it without choking the external notes. Because there's some sequencers out there that, like, if you have a 4-note chord and you add another note, like to add some fidelity to the way you play, it'll automatically choke the previous notes, which gets really frustrating. It's almost more of a paraphonic sequencer than it is a polyphonic sequencer. So while this is playing, maybe go down a couple octaves. Let's actually record that in. Oh, ran out of polyphony. Damn it. But what was cool though was I was still able to play that, which was the weirdest part. So I wonder how that's actually working, because it's playing all this, but I can still hold a note and it won't choke the note I'm holding. I'm guessing it's choking the notes that are within the sequence. The sequencer itself is only capable of putting out 8 notes versus the key bed. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, I don't know. Sorry, I'm figuring this out before you, but yeah, I didn't know that. That was kind of cool. But yeah, to answer that question, I'm pretty sure you can just merge the MIDI from the internal coming input and send that out of the output as well with everything else, especially over the USB as well. Any other question? Yeah.
This is going to be the most time-limited question. I was reading there's some variance between the pad brightness between the Mark III Mini and Standard.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if there's any feedback on adjusting the pad brightness Pro.
Yeah, so with the pad brightness here, in like right here, it's not too bad. I guess in direct sunlight, it might be pretty hard to see. Because the problem with direct sunlight, since the pads are white, they're absorbing light. But to keep it in the spec, which sucks because we can make them brighter, but to keep them in the safety spec standard of the being bus powered over USB-C, that was kind of the bottleneck in a sense, would be that sense, yeah. But yeah, all right, Launchpad Pro, cool. You want to switch it over to the Summit? Any other questions while we jump over to Summit or anything like that? Yeah.
I'm really into exotic rhythms.
Mm-hmm.
So with the sequencer, is there a way to kind of program something that's not just like really too metronomic?
Right, so that would be utilizing the micro steps. So I know the way I showed them was basically in a more of a ratcheting mindset where, cool, and this play 3 times. But what's great is you can actually turn off the first step and just kind of make it just unquantized. Like it doesn't have to be the first step plus these others. It could just be the last step, which is kind of early to the next step. And on top of that, you also have swing. And then the time divisions, it's not just 8th, 4th, 16th, 32nd. I think it's like 16th dotted, and then a 6th division of the tempo as well, and a 64th, which is like super fast. So with those kind of combined, you could get a lot of weird movement. And the best thing is you can have one track be 13 steps, one track be 64 steps, another one be 5 at a 1/4 of the tempo, and then so it will just keep going and going and going with however crazy you want it to be. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So the connectors on the back of the MIDI, is that 8-inch TRS or the 5-inch?
Yeah, so it's 8th to 5-inch adapter, and it comes with 3 of them for the MIDI in, and you also have 2 MIDI outs. So you can, in case you have something that only has an in and you have to kind of put it at end of chain, you can have a dedicated port for just that and chain everything else. Cool. All right, Summit. This, in case you're not familiar, it's the flagship big brother of Peak. It's 16 voice hybrid synthesizer, really fun to use. You can see it's like insanely laid out. Everything is just on the face of the unit. It's really simple. I'll go over to a single patch, and I know a lot of people hate this, but I'm gonna do it anyway. I'll start with an initialized patch. So the architecture of this, it starts with these Oxford oscillators. The reason I put them in quotations, that looked bad, is because the Chris Huggett, who does all our synth design, he did the Oscar back in the day, he did the Wasp, he's done all our synth design forever. This is no different. He's done the synth design here. He lives in Oxford, so Oxford oscillators. What that means, though, is that they're ran on an FPGA, so they're not sample-based. They're actually generated. They're NCOs, numerically controlled oscillators. So very stable, act very analog, and most digital synths run at around 48 to 96 kilohertz sample rate. These are at 24 megahertz, so literally no aliasing. And if you really wanted to drive it down, like they'll go there. Yeah, LFO range. What's cool is you can actually send that to other places, but we'll get to that later. So Oxford oscillators, the beginning of it is digital. After that, analog mixer, analog VCA, analog overdrive, analog dual analog filter, and 3 analog overdrives. So it brings back a lot of the warmth. The reason we did that was because we wanted the flexibility of the VCO core to just come up with new sounds and then warm it up after, because oscillators, analog oscillators are pretty boring. You got 4 shapes. You can do some weird linear FM stuff, and it's a little wild and squirrely sometimes. So if we go over to this More button, the menu automatically jumps over to our wavetables. And there's a ton. I want to say like 60 now, with more to come. But say we go to Tubi. In each wavetable, there's 5 positions of that wavetable that the shape knob will smoothly interpolate between. So if we start at the bottom, or if we go to one that's really cool, the octaves. So what's cool here is I can actually set the bias point, start there, and from that point, LFO1, move a little bit positive. It does a little positive negative. So I'm going to go and move our bias while that's still there. Find a sweet spot. And even to take it even further, these buttons here that you see like this, you're not choosing manual or mod envelope 1 or LFO1 as the source to that mod's destination. You're choosing between the depth control. So those 3 are automatically normaled to that destination. I hope that makes sense. Basically what I'm saying is I'm going to set the manual to be there, and from that point, mod envelope 1, go a little positive, which is right here. Where do we want it to land? Maybe there. Let's go to another wave shape. And then LFO1, from those 2 points, apply this. Turn that up a little. Or you want it a little softer, we'll do E-piano. Maybe not as much on LFO1. So what's great about that is you're taking 3 sources to one destination and not using up a single mod slot. It's a really fast way to program sounds. And one thing you get on Summit that you don't get on Peak is dedicated FM knobs with the same function of manual, mod envelope 2, and LFO 2. So 3 sources to the same destination. Even though on Peak you do have access to that in the mod matrix. You just don't have it dedicated on the face of the unit. So here I can say oscillator 3 to oscillator 1. Overdrive. Maybe amp envelope. Mod envelope 1. And that was like from an initialized patch turned like 2 knobs, and we got some weird guitar sound. Of course, you got your mixer here. Bring up oscillator 3, which is affecting oscillator 1. Maybe bring up oscillator 2, pulse width. So the filter from there is analog. We also got a ring modulator in the mixer, which will ring 1 against 2 and kind of give you a new complex wave shape. But the filter on here is really cool. It's derived from the Wasp filter, as are most of our filters. The base station, even the Mini Nova's filters were designed around the same filter architecture, which is essentially a Wasp. And you have overdrive, but it's pre-filter. And then you also have a post-filter overdrive, and then a third overdrive in the menu if you really need it. But they're all analog, which is great. And the cool thing with this one that you don't get on Peak is you can go to dual mode, and this gives you a dual analog filter. And basically, to create the 24 dB slope on a Wasp filter, it was 2 12 dB slopes stacked. So with the dual, we just split those and gave them independent movement and independent control. By going to dual, this jumps over to our filter menu, and it shows us what's actually happening. So right now we have a low pass going into high pass, in serial basically, or you can run 2 in parallel. So I can do bandpass and bandpass at the same time, but then change the filter's separation point. Or we can say, let's do low pass and bandpass, one of my favorites. And what's great is you can modulate the filter separation point as well as modulate the filter cutoff point. So you're moving the filter and then moving the 2 points between those points. And you can do that with some of the normal modulation destinations that we have here, like LFO1 to the filter cutoff. So that's just the whole filter knob as a whole. But if I go into the mod matrix, I can say, let's take LFO3 and send that to the filter cutoff. So LFO3, just positive. Maybe speed that up. Maybe not as much. Let's make this unison. This sounds pretty big already. Here's another secret. This is like an old Moog trick, but if you turn the key sync on the oscillators, every time you press the key, the oscillators will start from their 0 phase point, resulting in like a bigger, punchier sound. Without that, the oscillators are always on, and you're just turning on the amplifier. You're not necessarily resetting, so they could be a little out of phase, which can result in some cool driftiness. But with it on, it's very just aggressive. Speaking of cool, weird patterns like that, turn on the arpeggiator. In the arpeggiator, you have a bunch of different rhythms. As well as octaves. And you can also go up to 7 octaves, which is like dog whistle territory. Wouldn't suggest it, but it's an option. You also got your different types: play, chord, random, basically the way you played it, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down twice. And in there, it's just a bunch of rhythms. The gate time, which is another fun one to mess around with. So if you just do, let's turn our system. Cool. And from the filter section, you of course got the amp envelope, which can be looped, 2 mod envelopes, which can be assigned to whatever you want within the mod matrix. There's a lot of already normal modulation on the face of the unit, so you don't have to go diving too much. I mean, like this sound here, we have, what? We have 1 mod slot out of 20 used, and it sounds pretty cool already. The faders are longer on here than they are on peak, just for space reasons, so it's kind of nice if you're a fan of long faders, maybe go with Summit. 4 LFOs. You have 4 LFOs on there, but here you actually have control over all of them on the unit as well. You don't have control over 3 and 4. You only have control over 1 and 2. They all got fade times. They can be synced to the tempo. You got high rate as well as a low rate of their speed, which goes up into like the audio territory. Here's that other distortion after the filter that I was mentioning. And then some really good sounding effects. Maybe some delay. Some reverb. One thing that's great about these effects is if I hit the effects button, I can actually change the routing of these. So they're not just ran in parallel as they are. The other thing to mention about the effects is that they're ran in parallel with the actual signal path at the back. So we don't just take the analog warmth awesomeness and just cram it into DSP and get rid of all of it. So the fact that in the effects menu, you actually have an independent wet level as well as an independent dry level. So it's not just the whole signal ran in there. And what's cool is, what you also don't get on peak that you get on here is 4 outputs as well as 2 inputs. So you can run some stuff through the effects and out the auxiliary outputs. So I can also just say run all the effects levels in general just out of the auxiliary. So if you want to track that and print it completely separate from the dry signal for more flexibility later, you can. Or when you're running into the multi-mode, you can have part B and part B's effects out of the aux, part A and part A's effects out of the main. Or you can say run the input into here, maybe a drum machine, and then run that out of aux, and then you still have your 8-voice Summit on the mains, and like you can just kind of set this up to be a bunch of different ways. I'm gonna initialize this again. And I just wanna show this one thing. Just key latched it. We're going to focus on the effects. I'm going to change the routing. So I'm going delay into reverb into chorus. We have our delay. Right. Do a little bit of this. Maybe add some reverb to that. What's great is the effects level amount basically act as almost like a dry wet within the chain of effects. So if I turn the reverb all the way up, you no longer hear the delay, you just hear the reverbed version of the delay. Then you of course have the chorus. Feedback all the way up and turn latch off, it'll just keep going and just keep building upon itself, and eventually starts to clip, and it just sounds beautiful. like the effects are really, really fun to just mess around with. Remember that NAM set? It was filter and just that the entire time. But essentially, that's kind of it. I mean, you have the multi-mode, which is bitemporal. You can do up to 2 patches at once. And again, those can live on separate MIDI channels, kind of what I was doing with the Launchpad Pro, MIDI channel 1, MIDI channel 2, global on 3. You have different modes, so like if we do... we have our split, so we can do some sounds up here, and then some different sounds up here. But what's cool is I can just hold down split and say where I want the split point to be. So now, this is now another patch. Or you can do dual mode, which is the whole key bed is one patch, and then if I select the other patch, it's now that patch. Or layer, we'll layer them together. And the multi-part control is cool because if I hit them together, it'll turn white. And I'm controlling both patches at the same time. And this might get confusing, but in the multis are made up of 2 singles. Those are independent from the singles. So if you change up a patch in the multiverse or the multi-world and save it there, it won't affect that same patch that you pulled from the original single in the single world. So you have 4 banks of 128 patches on the front end, so that's like 512 or something. Then in the multi, you have 4 multis, and each multi has 2 singles. So you have like 1,000 something patches that you can save. And a lot of times, I'll just live within the multiverse and build my patches there, because I mean, I have 10 fingers, I barely play the piano, I don't need 16 voices, so I can just utilize 8, and eventually when I get there, I'm like, oh, what can I make that would sound good with this patch? And I can just save those here and stay in the multi-world and add another voice if I wanted to, because it's already there. So the multi-area is really cool. Animate buttons, which of course can be assigned to different things within the mod matrix as basically a gate. You can have an LFO going to it, so it won't affect its final destination until you push it down. Modulation wheel, as well as a pitch wheel, which are also sources in the modulation matrix. So you can say, go up an octave and close the filter and change the delay rate. That's another fun one to do, is you can actually change the delay time with keyboard tracking and just come up with some weird twisty sounds and whatnot. Yeah, it's just a really fun and easy to use synth from start to finish. It's literally left to right like a book. And if you go and look at peak, there's literally arrows that are like, from this part you go here, and now you're in the filter. From the filter you go over here, and from there you go there. So it's a great way to learn synthesis, and it's fun to just use, and you don't have to dive into the menu and do all that stuff. But if you wanted to, you can. There's reverb, pre-delay, and low pass of high pass, and all this other weird little nerdy things if you wanted to get into it, but a lot of it's just laid out here on the unit. Any questions on Summit? Yeah.
So you may have said it, and I may have been thinking about something you said prior to it, because a lot of it takes time for it to sink in.
Yeah.
And I may miss stuff.
Yeah.
Did you say that there's audio input?
Yeah.
Okay, so voice input as well, right?
Yes, exactly. Whatever you want, you can run into here. You even have an independent gain for it as well. And you can even choose where the input is going. Where is it at? Audio input off, pre-filter, or post-filter. So if you just want it to be effects, you can. And in the multi-mode, what I'll do is I'll set up part B to just be an internal input patch. Turn all the oscillators down, turn key latch on, boop, hit that. Now my audio is being passed through, and I can go to part A, play it as I would a normal synthesizer, but still have an effects processor on part B, and then run all that out of the separate aux output. So I have a synth and these really cool, awesome effects. Exactly. Yeah, so you have, I believe it's 2 on the back. Yeah, pedal 1, pedal 2, as well as a CV mod input, and those are all sources in the mod matrix as well. Yeah.
So when you're using like a multi-patch, like do the effects act independently on either patch?
Mhm.
You can set different delay time for...
Exactly. Yeah, so the question was, on the multis, do the effects, are they separate? And they totally are. And another fun thing to do too is with those rhythms in the arpeggiator, you can have different rhythms running on the arpeggiators as well, creating just kind of forever evolving little...
Multi-patches that are basically like you have
2 peaks. Yeah, exactly that. And you had a question?
Yeah, I think I was
Like how the ease of use kind of thing, or? How do I say this? No, it doesn't. But that's something that I've been like barking at specifically. Yeah. So I definitely didn't want that. Yeah.
And then, can you modulate the feedback with like filter cutoff?
I don't know. I'm hoping that with the well, technically no, you can't. The filter cutoff isn't a source in the mod matrix, but I'm hoping. I mean, I don't even know if I should be saying this. I'm hoping that maybe you can if we do apply some sort of even quicker modulation matrix assignment. But that would be really fun because like the pitch wheel, you could do pitch is always pitch, but then you can also have it be sent to whatever else. So why can't?
Or just being able to affect feedback after.
Oh, right. Yeah, that could be cool too. Right, as in like a one-stop kind of session. Yeah, that would be actually really cool.
On YouTube, they want to know if you can load wavetables or if you're planning to add that.
Christian, where are we at on this? You're eating pizza. Where there's updates coming. Yeah, we're not giving up on it yet. Yeah. Good question. Yeah.
I know it might be asking a lot, but like I have the Peak and I have the SL MK3. Would it be possible? The limitation I found on the Peak is that like a lot more CD-ins, like incorporating with your rack and stuff. Would it be possible to make sort of a lot of people have the Peak, make a Peak expander that would give us some of these? We don't need any more keys, regular.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder if I feel like that would just be a limitation of I/O and maybe utilizing the 5-pin in. But that's a great idea. I mean, an expander to any synth would always be a great idea. But that's a cool idea for sure. Did you write that down on that paper thing? Good. Yeah. If you guys wrote that, I'm reading all of those because we get a lot of ideas from you. I mean, you guys are the ones using it, so. Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, does the Harkin audio? Does that kind of? Don't they have one of those? I think that's pretty slim and thin. Maybe you can just. Yeah. I think so. Maybe. Yeah, the mini one, possibly. That'd be cool though. Any other question? Sweet. Awesome. Well, thank you everybody. This is awesome. Thank you so much for coming. All right, we got a raffle. We're doing a giveaway. Shall we do the giveaway? Oh man, who's it gonna be? Should I make a snare roll real quick? All right. Let's see. How do you open this? Oh, I got it. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. This is going to be for Victor, I think. Victor von Paev. Oh, dope. Yeah. Congratulations. You won. Yeah. Sweet. Awesome. Well, sweet. The raffle happened. That's it. Awesome.